Okay, so I usually start with an avodah that I do with myself. However, this week, Michal Paretz in her class, brought up an avodah that she did, and I really couldn't top that, and I loved it, and I'm bringing it up, and we're going to start the class rolling with that avodah that she did. So Michal, who has 12 children, most of them are sons, and they're all married to women, and they live all over Israel. And she has a son that lives very far north, and she actually lives near Gaza. And she says that this son, he is in the army. He's in the army. He's been in the army already like 15 years. And it means that he only comes home every other week for a Shabbat. And every other week, his wife goes to his army base. And it's called Tzva Keva. It's like going away in America. I think it's like army people that go from base to base. In Israel, instead of going from base to base, your husband just comes home every other week and allows his wife to come every week. And because that was the case, his wife said, I really want to live with my parents who live up north. And that way I could get a lot of support from them. And it turns out that they hardly see Michal and her husband and the family. Michal makes sure to take her family out, let's say 2 times a year on a family vacation, but they don't see them more than that. Because when her husband does come home, she doesn't want to go anywhere. And when she goes to the base, she's not going anywhere. So Michal was saying that she feels the least closest to this young woman. Her name is Rachel. Her son's name is Tom. So Rachel was due to have a baby this happened a month ago. Like within a month, she was supposed to have a baby. She could have been late. She could have been early. And Michal decided on Friday, 2 Fridays ago, that she wants to call up her daughter-in-law Rachel and bless her, and wish her to have an easy birth and a good birth and only see blessings from her children, etc. So she calls up on a Friday, and her daughter-in-law doesn't answer. So she says, you know what? Let me bless her in my heart. I'm going to bless her in my heart. I wish her a good Shabbat. I hope that her children are good, that she has an easy birth, that she only sees nachat from her children, etc. So the next week, her daughter-in-law still didn't have the baby, and it was Friday. And she said, let me try to call my daughter-in-law again. And she calls up again, and her daughter-in-law doesn't answer. And she thinks to herself, Friday is a really busy day. It could be that there is that there's just, she doesn't have the head to answer. Let me try to call Wednesday. So let me try to call during the week. And during the week, the week was just getting away from her. By Wednesday, she called up her daughter-in-law again, and the daughter-in-law didn't answer. So now Michal had 2 opportunities. One, she could start talking about her daughter-in-law. She saw that I called 3 times. She's not answering. She doesn't care. She's not respectful, blah, blah, blah. But we're not there anymore. We are trying to keep to the rule, or Michal is trying to keep to the rule. And this is like the first rule of our avodah, is that the work is always within me. The avodah is within me. It's not the other person. The other person is irrelevant. The other person is like, we're not going to the other person and talking about them. We're going to just talk about ourselves and our avodah. And she decided to dive inside herself and said, you know what? The avodah is in me. I want to know, what is the kind of relationship? How do I see this daughter-in-law? And when she dug deep inside, she was able to find vestiges of a certain avodah that she already did for years, but there was still something to be cleansed. What was the avodah that she did years ago? When this daughter-in-law decided to live up north with her parents, she also was not very, she was like the sole parent. And Michal would say about her that she's not raising the children in the way that her husband was, in the way that her son was raised, right? Like she wasn't raising the children in the family way. That wasn't their way. And Michal needed to clean it and say, this was the perfect girl for my son. This is who he needed. This is who we needed in our lives. This is the mother. She's the best mother for these children. She's giving the best to them. However, when Michal was delving inside of herself, she realized that she still had vestiges of, why isn't she, why isn't she religiously raising like I would want them to be raised, kind like little crumbs of that, very little crumbs of that. And she said, I want to clean it. I want to clean these crumbs. And in her head, she said, this is my daughter-in-law and I love her. And she is an amazing mother and she's doing great for my grandchildren. And this is the mother Hashem has for my grandchildren. And this is the wife my son has. She's a wife that's willing for her husband to give up literally a family life so that Am Yisrael could be safe. This is a wife that, functions as a single parent almost and keeps the home fires burning and, creates a home for my son to come to so that he could have a very calm head. And this is a woman that Hashem put in our lives because we need to learn things from her. And it was like she cleaned that out. That was Wednesday. And that was it. And Friday, her daughter-in-law calls her. And she said, Ma, I'm so sorry. Like with the birth coming, it's so hectic. I'm trying to finish things at work and I'm going to be having a home birth. And, I just needed to meet with the midwife. I didn't get a chance to meet with her. I just want to tell you, I appreciate that you called me. And Michal told her, thank you for calling. I want to tell you that I wanted to bless you already 2 weeks. And I don't even have to talk to you to bless you. I could just bless you. I could bless you in my heart. I could bless you in my head. It doesn't necessarily have to be direct towards you. Of course, you need to do what's good for you. And that Friday night at 2:00 in the morning, so it was already Saturday, her daughter-in-law went into labor and had a baby. And, the baby's name is Be'ed. It's a girl named Be'ed. And Michal was so struck by the fact that when we come across anyone in any situation around us, immediately the thought that needs to hit us is, we were given this situation in order to grow. We were given this situation in order for us to do our avodah in this world. The person who's across from us, whether it is our spouse or our children or, the in-laws, the outlaws, that, our daughter-in-laws, our son-in-laws, they're here to enrich our life. They're here as messengers. They're here to teach us something. And we are the ones that need to figure out what there is. There were definitely 2 ways for Michal to be able to take this story. And really, had she taken it any other way, she would have missed out on the, she would have missed out, wait, there's a word that I'm trying to, the he'ara, this enlightenment. She would have missed out on this enlightenment that there are still things about her daughter-in-law that needs to be cleaned to the utmost. Though it was pretty clean to begin with, there's a small sliver of cleanliness that needed to happen there. And her daughter-in-law calls her. When we do the avodah, it changes things in worlds, not in this, it changes things in the worlds above. So therefore, things in this world change. There are, like, our hearts are no longer the same. And that resonates throughout the world, and it is heard by the people that we're connected to. So the minute we're able to change what is in our heart, we're able to make ourselves clean from any kind of negativity, any kind of criticism, any kind of expectations of the other, any kind of thinking in our heads, they should do, why don't they, how could they? Those are words that are not from our lives anymore. These are not words from our lives, because these are words that bring us down. Now, there is a possibility. There are two worlds that we could live in. We could live in the underworld, we're going to call it, or we could live in the higher world, right? Or like I said, we could live in this world, or we could live in Gan Eden, but I want to call it for now, I want to call it the higher world or the underworld. And I want to give a story about that. Wait, before I give the story, I just want to say a small Devar Torah. We are coming towards Pesach, and we're now preparing for the Seder. We're preparing our homes. We're cleaning. We're setting our houses in order. And I'm going to talk about that shortly. However, I want to go into Paro's name. And Paro's name comes from a Hebrew word of lehafriya. Paro, lehafriya. What is lehafriya? Paro, it means someone that comes in as a bother. Paro is lehafriya. What was he mafriya? He was stopping us from leaving Mitzrayim. He was stopping us from connecting to Hashem. He was stopping us. No one could stop us from connecting to Hashem, but he was stopping us from leaving our physical, the physical place of Mitzrayim. And he was bothering us to fulfill our potential, let's say. So he was mafriya. What are we supposed to do to the paro that is mafriya us, that is bothering us, right? That is hindering us? Paro means to hinder. What are we supposed to do to those things that hinder us? We are supposed to be very grateful to them. We're supposed to thank them, because through them, we will develop. We will realize our strengths. We will flower. We will blossom. We will need to be able to find competency within ourselves. We will be able to find different routes, different ways to get higher, to reach our goal. So we have a paro here, and paro is all the things that we think are bothering us from reaching our goals. And what we need to do to those things is to thank them, because only through them is growth possible, is growth. Like I remember someone once saying, why does it have to be with so much pain, growth? And the truth is, if it wasn't with the pain, there wouldn't be any growth. So what we need to do to that paro is we are going to thank him. And the truth is, like, even when we look at the pshat of the Tanakh, there are so many mitzvot that are connected to the fact that we were slaves in Egypt. It seems like the fact that we were slaves in Egypt opened us up to a lot of compassion, to a lot of ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, ve'ahavta et hager, ve'ahavta, like it opened us up to a lot of love and giving and noticing the other. And we wouldn't have been able to develop these characteristics within ourselves had we not experienced the pain of the slavery. Like many of our mitzvot are because ki gerim ha'aytem be'eretz Mitzrayim, ki avadim ha'aytem be'eretz Mitzrayim. Like all these mitzvot to make a better world were born from our pain and our being in these very narrow straits. So it's like these narrow straits were not only were they inevitable, but they were necessary, like air to breathe. So when difficulties come into our lives in the form of people around us, or in the forms of difficulty of the situations around us, they're catalysts for us to catapult us into a higher level, into a place that we wouldn't have known before. My daughter Tal, sorry, hold on one second. I just need to pick this up. 1 minute. My daughter Tal and her husband finally got COVID because they were vaccinated 3 times, and so they got COVID later than everyone else. And I just came to take their son out because he's going stir crazy. And I went into the park. I walked into the park and we were playing together. And all of a sudden I see a husband of my daughter's friend Malka, and he was at the park. He lives in Pardes Chana. He doesn't even live in Tel Aviv. He was at the park with his 3 children. And I walked over to him and I said, hi, I'm Malka's mother. Do you remember, you once came to our house? And he totally remembered me. And I asked him, where's your wife? And he said, well, my wife she was 6 months pregnant and her water broke. And I took her to the hospital and she had fever and they had to take the baby out and the baby was born dead. In Israel, it's called a silent birth. And now this is a week later and all of a sudden she got fever. So I brought it to the hospital and he brought it to the hospital in Tel Aviv because his sister-in-law works there as a doctor and he was in the park with the children. And I asked him, how are you doing? Because basically in Israel, it's called a silent death because the baby doesn't come out crying. And because also people just view it as a miscarriage and it's very devastating for the mother, but people around don't see it as devastating. And the mother totally had a baby and they buried and it was a girl and they wanted a girl and devastating. So he was saying, so I asked him, how are you? And he goes, this is really a journey. And we don't know where it's going to end. It was like, Ade lo yada. Ade lo yada is like, we don't know. We just don't know where it's going to end and where it's going to take us. And I said, the only blessing I can give you is that I hope that one day you will know the meaning of your journey. You will know what this was for, what it taught you, what it built in you, what you needed to take from it in order to go up to another level. In other words, when Bnei Yisrael were in Mitzrayim, there was no way they could know that 2-3 generations later, like even a generation later, they're going to be in their own country, in their own land, in their, in a sovereign state where they will need to know how to treat the Ged and the slaves, and they would need to know how to treat the people around them, and that the slavery built a level in them that they wouldn't have been able to function in their land had it not been there. So when I told him that, he said, you know what? It's like the best blessing you could give a person, because when you think that things happen for nothing, it's just heart-wrenching and you just don't know what to do with it. But when you know that there might be a glimmer of knowledge of why this happened and what needs to be learned from it, then he says I could survive the pain that I have now. Okay. Everyone here in this world around us is here to add to our lives, right? Is here to add to our lives, and the good that they have to add to our lives is not hidden, but it's blatant. It's there, and we don't even need to. I was going to say we need to forage for it like gold. It doesn't have to be foraged so deeply, because the good is not sunk so deep within us. It's more on the surface, and we just need to just uncover it a little bit. I want to tell a story of a young boy, my friend's son, and he got a very big magnet set. He's 7 years old. He had like the basic magnet set. An uncle came from the States and gave him like the big mega magnet blocks that make also like he could make like a water park with it and whatever. And he sat down for a couple of hours and he built like a most incredible, creation. And he went to his mother and he told her, Ima, I worked so hard on this. I want to save it for at least 4 days. Like, I worked so many hours, it deserves to be saved for 4 days. And the mother had all the best intentions in the world, but someone just walked by it and the dress like just brushed it by and half of it fell down. And then a couple of hours later, someone else by accident, like no one did this on purpose, and it broke down. and the son was crying and inconsolable and couldn't get over it. And the mother was heartbroken and very triggered, and he cried through half the night. So the next day she was talking to me, and I asked her, the person who broke it, how did your son see that person, right? What did he look at the person? What was his definition of the person that broke it? She goes, he looked at the person as if that person is an enemy. He has an enemy in his house, and the enemy came to break his creation. And I asked the mother, okay, your son was here to teach you something. Let's put your son aside and let's see what gold we can glean for what your son had to teach you. And I asked her, how do you walk around in this world? How do you walk around in this world? And she said, you want to know something? Like we had a bit of a conversation about it. Like I asked her, like, who's the enemy for you in this world? She goes, no one is the enemy in this world for me. I don't walk around as if I have enemies. So I asked her, how do you walk around in this world? How do you treat the people around you? She said, you want to know something? I treat everyone around me like they want to take something from me. Like my kids bring their friends and I'm making pitot on the, in my oven. And then I think to myself, they're here to eat all my pitot. My neighbors come in, they're here to take my time. My guests come in, they're here to eat my food. My husband comes in, he's here with his demands. I feel like everyone wants to take, like, I actually do look at everyone like an enemy that wants to take something from me. Now, living in that kind of world is living in the underworld, feeling that people around us are here to take something from us, because it's living in a world like musical chairs. And like musical chairs, there's always one less chair than the people that are around. So there's always someone left without a chair. That's like living in a world of seeing everything as a profit or a loss. Am I going to get time? Am I going to lose time? Am I going to have energy? Am I going to lose energy? Are they going to eat my food? Or are they going to not eat my food? It's like a profit and loss. I'm constantly calculating, what is this going to do to my time, to my energy, to my money, to my space, to everything around me. But the truth is, if we decide that we don't want to live in this underworld of musical chairs, we need to realize that each and every one of us was born with our own chair from the minute we come into this world to the minute we die. The abundance that Hashem has for me in this world and the place that He put me in this world, no one could take it from me. All the things that I need, I will get in this world. Hashem had planned for me. Hashem had made for me everything that I need in order to function in this world. Is already in this world. It's made for me, and it means that I don't have to be influenced. I'm not influenced. I cannot be influenced, right? I cannot be influenced by other people's choices, by their deeds, by how they look at me, by expectations, because I have my own tent, and my own tent is reserved for me. I have my chair that, in the musical chairs, I have my chair, and I want to live in this higher world. I make my choices and it influences me, and other people make their choices and it influences them. It cannot be that other people's choices influence me, because I have no control over anyone else and no one else has any control of me. And that is the first rule of creating a connection. We want to live in this world and we want to be connected. First of all, especially, I want to be connected to my husband. I want to be connected to my children, right? And the first rule of connection is separation. It's very paradoxical. We think the first rule of connection is to connect. No, but the first rule of connection is separation. I need to know that I have my way and I am separate from you, and you have your way and you're separate from me. You have your abundance and I have my abundance. Nothing is coming at the expense of anyone else. And the minute I know that I'm a separate entity, I'm a separate individual, only then I could connect to you, because I have a me to connect to you. Now, if we realize that, we know that no one can take anything from me. So if anyone come close to me, if anyone will come close to me, I don't look at them as a time drain, as an energy drain, as someone who's trying to hurt me, as like they're my enemy, they're going to take from me, and then I'm going to have less. I don't look at anyone that way. I'm looking at the people around me in two ways. One, you're a messenger, and the other is you're trying to teach me. Every person near me is either a messenger to push me forward in this world, right? The messenger to show me my point, my nekuda, to teach me something, to teach me where my growth is. Like Michal's daughter-in-law taught her that she was her messenger to teach her that there's still some vestiges of maybe an eye that's not so good yet, that needs to be changed, that needs to be cleaned, right? And seeing people, and people are here to teach me. Everyone is here to teach me something. And it means that everyone around me in this world is only here to give me good. Everyone. That's what I need to hold in my head. I'm not asking about, I'll give you an example. Everyone in this world is here to give me good. Okay. I used to have a very difficult time with my mother because I would constantly be weighing her and judging her in this form. I would be saying, she doesn't come to me. She doesn't call me up. She doesn't care about me. She's not interested in me. And it created a lot of, first of all, it created a lot of bad feelings in me towards my mother. All these thoughts that I had in my head, did she call me today? Did she care? Did she, she knows that my son is going to be bar mitzvah. She didn't say Mazal Tov. She didn't come to me. Not only that, she told me that she doesn't want to come to the Sabbath because she doesn't want to sleep, not in her own bed, blah, 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 all these things. And I decided that I will stop, right? I decided that I will see the love and care that I have for my children is the same as the love and care my mother has for me. It doesn't matter. It at all doesn't translate into what she does. It's a fact of life that a mother loves her children, wants good for them, and wants them to be happy in this world. Though we shouldn't be wanting our children to be happy, but our parents, just as I love my children, that's how much my mother loves me. That is what I am keeping in my head. And it meant that I needed to let go of all the calculations of, did she call? Did she come? How much did she give? Did she buy? What is this? What is that? And because doing those calculations puts me in the underworld. And we don't want to be in the underworld. We want to be in the higher world. So I don't use the underworld's kelim to evaluate anyone. I don't want to evaluate anyone like that, but I want to evaluate them in the higher world kelim. So my mother, and once I saw my mother in that light of her loving me and caring for me as much as I love and care for my children, because there could be no other way. Because you know what? My mother maybe did not know how to express herself in the way that I do, let's say to my children, but that is just the outer world. That's like a mask. That's not what really is on the inside. On the inside, there's love. On the inside, there's care. It might not be able to be brought into fruition the way I am doing it with my children, but we're the same. We're exactly the same in our love and care for our children. So now all I could say is that so I just want to say that when, 15 years ago, when I was able to hold that on in my head, things changed with my mother. Things changed. Like, it was like Michal Peritz's daughter-in-law calling her up and after 3 times, calling her up after she was able to clean. After I was able to see my mother in a clean way, in a higher way, in a higher world way, and not in the underworld way, when I was able to do that, my mother changed. Something about her changed. Something with her shifted. And the shifting was generated by me. The shifting was generated by me. I needed to change. She did not need to change. It was me that needed to do the change. Okay. So I want to look around. Oh, yikes. 1 minute. Guys, I just need to plug in my phone. Sorry. Okay. Okay, before I plug in my phone, great. So I'm going to repeat. Everyone around me is here to give me good. That's what I need to hold in my head. And I don't make calculations like, is it adding up for me, right? I don't use the lower world's language, the lower world's kelim, utensils, but the higher world. And if there's something unpleasant, I realize that it's for my growth. Now, what is my attitude towards difficulty and towards challenge, right? What is my attitude towards it? Do I want to escape it? Do I look at difficulty and challenge as a bummer, right? Or when we do this cleansing and this cleansing of the people around us, on Pesach, we're cleaning our homes. We're organizing our homes. I am asking us to first clean the way we see the people around us. Let us clean, right, the people around us, because what it will give us is an open heart, a loving heart. And that is not dependent on what anyone is doing outside, but it's just dependent on what's inside of me, on my ability to forage for gold in everyone, in anyone, in everyone around me, when I realize that they're here as a messenger and as a teacher. So there cannot be people who I have no patience for. There cannot be, because my sight of them becomes different, right? And all it is a matter of flexing that muscle and peeling the onion from my heart, to expand my heart, to open my heart, to realize that everyone around me is here to shine a light, to shine their light. And because they're around me, Hashem put them around me because there's a light for them to shine within me that I need to change. Okay, so the first move we do is create a shalom within us. And this is what we've spoken about a lot. And this next step is creating shalom between us and our families. And then that creates also shalom between us and our community, right? The shalom within us is number one, and that's something that we've spoken about. We also need to realize that between us and our spouses, let's say, right? Only after I see, when we want to have this connection, only after I see that there's a me and there's a him, right? When he is firm where he is and I'm firm where I am, there's never a possibility of anyone living at the expense of anyone else, because both of us, we give each other, or you know what, it doesn't even have to be our husbands doing it to us, but as long as we do it, it sets a modeling that ends up having reverberations and repercussions to us. If we're able to give our husbands kavod and makom, and we realize that we have kavod and makom in our world, right? Then there's no possibility of anyone living at the expense of it. Like if my husband, if it's Friday and I'm working and my husband goes to sleep, he's not sleeping at my expense. Because he's sleeping doesn't mean that I'm working harder. He is tired, he's sleeping. If I am tired, I will also sleep. And if everything will not get done, then it will not get done. But my husband going to rest doesn't come at my expense. No one here is at my expense. No one in this world could live at my expense, because we have our chairs, musical chairs, but in the higher world, my chair is always there. Okay.
Michal?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like last time when you were talking about, the stories that we tell ourselves, like when you said you come in and you see dirty dishes and then you could, make a whole story about the dirty dishes. But
Mhm.
it's so amazing how I tried to implement that and not have a story about everything. Like what you're
Yeah.
saying, if your husband goes to sleep and whatever, it just is what it is. Like you could stop it at the reality and then you have a choice. So
Mhm.
it just simplifies everything, and it's so easy to be more positive around that thought process.
Right.
And it's I think it lends itself to exactly what you're saying now. Just about
Yeah.
stopping the drama, stopping, don't be in the jungle with the stories,
Right.
like elevate yourself out, and just
Mhm.
reality is what it is. You don't have to go any further.
Right.
I love that.
Reality.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I want to tell you that I think that not everyone understood that concept. And I'm so glad that you brought it up, because I just want to sharpen it a little bit more, if possible. Um, because also the Seder night is a night of stories. It's a night where we tell stories. It's actually the creation of the Jewish people, and we launched the Jewish people with a story. And it's a story about Hashem taking charge of everything and taking us out of our bondage, our imprisonment, our slavery, our narrow streets that we're in. Hashem taking us out of it, and we're the ones that are telling the stories about Hashem. So when we want to stop drama in our lives and to stop the stories in our head, we need to bring Hashem into our stories. And it's exactly what we're doing. I mean, on Purim, Hashem is not mentioned in the Megillah. And on Pesach, Moshe is not mentioned in the Haggadah. The Haggadah is a story where we're constantly putting Hashem in there. So when I want to bring the story that I had with the reading of the Megillah, that I went to 2 Megillot reading, and each one of them was so speeding, and I was burning and bummed and upset, and I started to tell myself stories. This is what Tel Aviv is all about, and I never even wanted to be here, and what am I doing here? And I can't even get a decent Megillah reading, and I want to give Mishlochei Manot, but the building, everyone went on vacation. I have no one to give it to, and the congregants, they gave me Mishlochei Manot that the human hands didn't touch, like everything packaged. So was only able to see that story because I took God out of my life. God was out of my life, and that is why that story took hold in my head. Because if I decide to go to the old age home and the reading is very fast, that is where Hashem put me. That's where He meant for me to be. And Hashem is trying to see, can this woman be happy regardless of where I put her? Could this woman learn a lesson from what she just saw? I learned such an important lesson. I mean, and I said it last week. My lesson is that I need to look at the way I lead my spiritual life and have it not be, just do it to do it. But before I was able to see that, even the step before that is there was a fast reading. And all I needed to say is the reading was fast, period. The rest of everything of what I said is me proving to myself that Hashem doesn't exist in my life. Because when we go into the dramas, into the blame, into the poor me, we are saying that God is not taking very good care of me. God doesn't know what to give me in order to help me grow. I'll give you an example. Like, I have a friend who runs a very healthy household, and she doesn't give any junk food and any food coloring and any sugar and da 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 da. Her oldest child is 12 years old, but they decided that every time there's candle lighting, their kids are going to be allowed one snack. So so she and her husband give the children at candle lighting, they have 6 children, they give them a small bag of chips. And her 12-year-old son came over to him. He said, you don't love me. You care nothing for me, and you care nothing for my needs. I am a 12-year-old, and I deserve a bag of 200 grams, not 50 grams. And, I don't even want potato chips. Why don't you buy me biscuit? If already one time you're giving us, a snack, let it really be a good snack. And you're just mean. You don't see me. You don't see my needs. And you just don't like me. I'm in a family where no one cares about me. Now, my friend was, after Shabbat, she called me up and she was literally in tears. And, and she was saying, is he right? What am I doing to them? Am I victimizing them? What am I creating over here? Or am I doing the right thing or not? And I was telling her, I was telling her that it is an opportunity for us to teach our children that at any point in our life, we can choose to do good for ourselves, or we could choose to do bad for ourselves. We could choose to see the good in a situation, or we could choose to see, the negative in the situation. So in other words, anything that happens to us on the outside really is an internal choice about how we want to look at the world. It reminds me of a mother that I read about, that her husband, they live in Bnei Brak, and her husband is a bus driver, that he drives people to Kivrei Tzadikim up north, to Meron. And it's a very grueling job, and it makes a good parnasa. And the father is hardly home. The children see the father just every Shabbat. And every day, the mother tells the children, your father is out there thinking about you every day, loving you, making sure we have the 4 walls around us, making sure that there's healthy food at the table, making sure that, you could go to the Talmudei Torah where they teach you such good Torah, making sure that we have warm clothes. Like, all he does all day long is just think about you and how much he loves you and how much he wants to provide for you, and you're the biggest joys of his life, right? And years later, when they asked the children who was the most influential person in your life, they said totally our father. And legit, the father was only there once a week. Like, he would be traveling up north and even sleeping in Meron, and then coming down and taking the next, and he would come home, the kids are sleeping, and he would leave, they're still sleeping. And the mother chose a story of the higher world, and that was like such a gift that she was able to give her children, because she didn't live in a world of profit and loss, right? She taught her children that in every situation that happens in their life, they could choose either to feel bad for yourself and cry for it because someone did not give me what I wanted. Like, you didn't give me the 200 grams of, or you can say your happiness doesn't depend on anything external from you. Your happiness only depends on things that are internal to you. So that when my friend who I mentioned, and the situation is still going on, I have to say, my friend who I mentioned that lives in England, and her brother decided to do, how do you say, a wedding in, how do you call it? A wedding in Israel. Remind me how you call that. A destination wedding, yes, destination wedding. So first of all, he's there to teach her something for sure. Yeah, and on the other hand, also, she can say, my brother is making a destination wedding in Israel, period. And the rest of the sentences that go on in her head are actually sentences that bring her into the underworld. And the sentences that go on is, and he doesn't care about my children because they can't afford to come. And he doesn't care about family because the whole family can't be there. And he only cares about himself because Israel is his dream, and he's only doing what he wants, and he doesn't care about what anyone else wants. All those sentences, they bring us into the underworld. They make us miserable. They actually say the sentence that God doesn't care about me and is trying to give me misery in my life. Just like this boy was saying about his parents, you don't care about me, you don't love me. When we're in a world of, in the underworld of profit and loss and misery and complaint, we're saying, Hashem, the part that you play in my life is not one that I like, is not one that I am willing to accept. You're not giving me a good life. You're giving me a lousy life. Okay? And the truth is the bottom line truth is that every single person has a tailor-made life for them with all their challenges in order for us to do our tikkun in this world and in order for us to be brought higher. In 2 parashot ago, Hashem says, it doesn't say that God took us out of Mitzrayim, he lifted us up out of Mitzrayim. In other words, our Mitzrayim is meant to lift us up. And things that are happening here are meant to lift us up. And lifting us up is how we get closer to him. Lifting us up is how we do the tikkun. Lifting us up is how we're able to get to the higher world. And only a good and kind and loving Hashem could do it. When we complain, we're saying, like this little boy told his mother, you don't love me, you don't care about me. And it is not true, and it's a lie. It has nothing to do with reality, and it puts us in the underworld. Okay. Okay, so also, I want to give another example of another friend of mine of what it means that no one, that this life is not a profit or a loss, and no one lives at our expense, and we're not living on anyone else's expense. So my friend, one of my friends, I have so many friends since I started going to Michal parents, and everyone is just doing avodah all the time. So I'm so glad I have all these examples. My friend felt like very overworked, very depleted, and she wanted to go away for 3 days on her own. Now, she has younger children, she has a husband, and living in a world of loss and profit, in the lower world, you start doing calculations of how can I leave? Who's going to take care of the children? How are they going to eat? What's going to be? How's my husband going to manage? And starting living in a low world is like starting to make all these calculations. And, if I'm gone and he's upset, then, that's a loss. But then if I'm going to go on vacation, that's a gain. So she said she wanted to be out of that world, out of that underworld of calculations of profit and loss. She said, I need 3 days and I want to go away for 3 days. And she told her husband, this is what I want. Now, she would have loved to go on vacation with her husband. He couldn't get away from work. She needed the vacation. So her husband started to say, how could you do this? You're not responsible. I have a job. Who's going to cook? What's going to be? So her first realization was that her husband is living in a profit and loss world. If my wife is there, it's a profit. If she's not, it's a loss. If the kids need food, it's a loss. If there's someone to cook for them, it's a profit. That's a profit and loss world. Like all calculations of, good and bad, like that. And she realized that her husband is not talking about her. How could you do this to me? You're irresponsible. You're a irresponsible wife. You're a responsible mother, neglectful, uncaring, whatever. Even though he was saying these things, that's not what he was meaning. What he was meaning to say is that I see the world in eyes of profit and loss. And seeing the world in eyes of profit and loss, I don't think I could survive, when you're going to go for 3 days. And she realized that her job is not to, first of all, not go on her mini vacation, and is not to defend herself, but her job is to teach her husband that his good is not dependent on her. His good is not dependent on anything outside of him, but his good is dependent on his ability to do good for himself. So she was asking him, what is going to be hard for you when I leave? He said, the cooking. Like, cooking? What could you do about that? And they started to talk about it, and it seems like there's a pizza store that could deliver pizza. And he's like, what? They're going to eat pizza like 3 times a day? Okay, yeah, the kids could eat pizza 3 times a day. And, and I work till 7 o'clock, and who's going to be with them? And okay, how could you take care of that? Let's say I drop dead tomorrow. How would you take care of that? So, because, when we're not here, when we're not here and alive, so people around us think that their good comes from us. But no, their good comes from Hashem, and it comes from within them, and it doesn't come from us. It's not dependent on us. They're good. So she asked her husband, like, if I was dead, what would you do? He said, I'd get a sitter. Great, you'd get a sitter. And one by one, when they were going through all the profit and loss considerations that he had in his head, she helped her husband realize that he is able to take charge of his own good, that life isn't about, if she stays, it's good. If she doesn't, it's bad. If the kids are, eating only pizza, it's bad. And if they eat only salad, it's good. Like, she took him out of that head, and she was able to educate him that the good comes from within us. And I am responsible for that at any given moment. I am responsible to do good for myself. And when, as a child, let's say, when my mother leaves, like, I remember my mother left me at 12 years old to take care of my siblings, who were 5 siblings. She and my father went away on vacation. It was totally, I was able to now looking back, I saw it as my mother sees that I'm capable and competent, and she trusts me, and she's able to leave me and know that I'll take good care of my siblings, and etc. Yet I also know that, and that is looking at myself as being the provider of my own good. Yet I could have also looked at it as my mother and father are selfish. They're leaving me. It's their responsibility. I don't have to do anything for them. Like, whatever, like, I could have built that kind of a story. And that's a story from the underworld. That's a story that weakens me. That's a story that tells me that there's no Hashem in this world, that there's no Hashem in my life. If we walk around miserable from the reality of our life, it is walking in this world saying, Hashem doesn't exist here for me. Okay, so just going back to this example of the husband and wife, I asked my friend, like, what was the first tool you needed to do in order to deal with your husband's, saying, how could you? You're irresponsible. You can't do this. This is not our contract, not our agreement, the children, the food, the laundry, the house. Like, what was the first tool you used? And the first tool she said she used is something that we started to talk about, but I want to now highlight it for Pesach. It's called sort and separate. First of all, we need to sort and separate. She said, I separated myself from him, and I realized that everything that he was telling me about about me really wasn't about me. It was about his fears of managing alone, of being alone, of, not getting his work done. He had a lot of fears. And I needed to help him sort it out and put it in manageable kind of compartments to be able to see it clear. So when we are now going through our homes, and what we need to do is sort and separate, like in our cleaning for Pesach, the sorting and separating and getting rid of things in our closets, in our homes, are when we do it, as we do it, we need to pray to Hashem to help us separate from the people around us in order so that we could have a connection, so that we're not Siamese twins, but we could have a connection that's healthy. We could have a connection that's strong. We could have a connection that's valid, that's that's powerful. And only when we separate and be two separate individuals can we ever have that kind of connection. Now, Pesach is coming, and we have a lot of opportunity to sort and separate. We want to also sort out all sentences in our minds that lead us nowhere, that are irrelevant, that are extraneous. We want to sort that out of our life. We want to take those sentences out of our life of what kind of mother am I, or what kind of husband is he, or what kind of daughter do I have, what kind of son do I have. All those kind of sentences we want to get rid of as we get rid of all the extraneous things. Now, in Pesach, there's two types of, there's nikayon, there's cleanliness, and there's seder, right? We do the seder. What does seder mean? Seder means organization. And the cleaning part is very on the outside, but the organizational part is internal. The organization is internal in our homes, because we could really put everything in closets and close it, and it looks like it's organized. But the truth, it's not. These are things that weigh us down, that are extraneous, that we want to get rid of, whether it's those sentences, whether it's wanting to get rid of the profit and loss kind of calculations. We want to get rid of the imaginations that we have, the stories that we tell ourselves, the dimion that we have, right? We want to sort all these things out of our home. And as we sort the physical things, I want us to think about what are the spiritual things that we need to sort and separate in our lives, in our relationships as well. Okay. Any questions? Hold on 1 minute. Okay, I'm putting it on pause and
Me, I don't
continue
care.
if you don't
but-
care. Go ahead. Okay.
So I wanted to say, like, when you're sorting out, you want to get rid of, extraneous things and get them out, and you feel so much cleaner. But when it comes to things that you're saying to yourself, I found it so helpful when I supplanted a positive statement, to look at.
Give us an example. Give us an example.
When we did that avodah, when I was talking to you about my children, and you were saying, well, give me a positive, and I said they're strong individuals paving their own path. And how many times that became my mantra, and it makes me so happy, and it makes me look at them so positively, and none of the negative things remained, but I was able to rid myself of them because I put in place the positive.
Amazing.
So,
Beautiful.
but with drawers, it's very different, because I'm looking at the drawer. I want to get rid of stuff, I want to get it out. But of course we want to get out the negative, but we want to bring in the positive so there is a thought, there is a good thought. And it's so loving, and it's so good for me that way.
Okay, so I want to just go through the process of the drawers, and it's going to connect to what you said, and I'm really grateful that you brought this up. When we do a drawer, we don't take anything, we don't start rummaging through the drawer to take out what we don't want. When we do a drawer, we take everything out, everything. We clean and wipe the drawer very lovingly, right? And when we take everything out, it's also in our minds, we take all the negative sentences out. That's taking the negative sentence of how we look at different things. My daughter is not working. She is bumming around. She's just lying in bed all day. She's watching Netflix, whatever. Like, these are, we're cleaning out, we're taking everything out, right? And then we define the drawer. Let's say we define the drawer: sweaters, Shabbat sweaters, and everyday sweaters. And then we start putting into the drawer only sweaters that suit me, that fit me, that feel good for me, that is, we only put in sweaters that I would buy today. This is what I would buy today. This is what I'm putting in. And that is my emet, and that is who I am. And that is what I put in the drawer. So it's not about, it's about seeing who I really am after when I finish that drawer. When I look at that drawer, I see this is me. This is who I am now. If I were to die tomorrow, my daughter will open up my drawer and say, yes, this was my mother. She's not going to say, this was my mother in the past 20 years. No, she's going to say, this is who my mother was. Exactly. And that leads to like, so we do that on the spiritual level and on the physical level. Cleaning out the drawer, defining what the drawer, sorting all the sweaters out. And then everything that we have left over is extraneous that we do not want in our lives. Just like all the negative sentences that we don't want in our lives, extraneous.
So the positive is what we're putting back into the drawer.
Exactly.
So it's the same thing. Yeah. Okay. Got you.
Okay. We're not, everything that was in the drawer, the sweaters that I'm not using, they served me at a certain point, but they're not my emet anymore. So they don't serve me anymore. So it's extraneous in my life at this point. It doesn't make me happy. Thoughts that do not make me happy should not be there, because my happiness is in my hand, and then I'll choose whether to have the thought or not to have the thought. So I want to also just go back to the last thing that I think I'm going to end with, and that is that no one is living at my expense. Everyone around me adds knowledge and insight, and everyone around me is actually another Neshamah of Hashem that is near me, and it's an opportunity for me to be able to see another Neshamah, right? And I want to see in that Neshamah that other person's values in which he functions. But I will not judge a person by his actions, only by his intent, his deep intent, right? And that is the value of his neshama, because I think everyone's intention is to do good, is to be good, is to get up and bring their good into the life. I don't know if by their actions, yeah.
Can you repeat that message? Because that's really difficult.
Okay. So I'm repeating the 3 sentences that I said before, just because I really think they're important. And then I'm going to leave us there, because like I have a lot more material, but I just feel like it's overload, and I just want to really be left with this last point. No one in this world is living at my expense, and I don't live on anyone else's expense. Everyone around me is a person that adds knowledge to my life, insight to my life, and every other person around me is a neshama that God is in that person. And when these people are around me, it's another part of God that's near me. And every neshama I want to see the value in which he functions, right? I want to see how he functions in this world, that neshama. And I will not judge a person by his actions. My mother called me, she didn't call me. She bought for me, she didn't buy for me. She, I gave birth, she said mabruk, she didn't say like all that. No, I'm not judging people by their actions. I'm going to judge him by his internal neshama, by his internal intent. I'm gonna judge him in the higher world and not in the underworld. Okay, judging my mother, let's say in the underworld, was I gave birth and she didn't visit once. My son's bar mitzvah, she didn't say mabruk. My whatever. Like I came to her and she went out to pray. Every time I walk in the house, she goes out to pray. I stepped in and she was saying her tehillim. She never looks at whatever. No, those are actions. I will judge people by their intent, not by the action. Okay, so another sentence that I want to say, because if we live in the underworld, then we're always reacting to the reality in front of us, right? He didn't come home, it means he doesn't care. He went to take a nap, it's because he only cares about himself. He came late because he doesn't see how hard it is for me. That's always reacting in the other world to what's happening on the here and now, instead of going to the higher world and being able to look at it in the intent way, not in the action way, to live in the intent way, into the intent world, and not in the action world. The action world is a whole world of sheker. It's a whole world of lies. And the higher we create our reality, right, then the higher of a world I live in, the higher we raise the people around us. Okay, the higher we create our reality, the higher the people around us are raised. I'm ending with that.